June 14th, 2018 meeting to order. First item of business is approval of the minutes from the May 24th meeting. Any changes or additions? No. Next item is citizen comments. If there's anybody here who has any comments on a non-agenda item, seeing none, move on to employee promotions and new hires. Who's up first?
Good evening, Commissioners.
Hello.
Carolyn McCollum-Scantlin, Director of the Communications Center and Dispatch Center. I'd like you to meet our newest employee. This is Brandon Comer. He started with us on May the 7th. He's originally from Ohio, has been in Kansas about 12 years. He graduated from Christ for the Nations University of Dallas, Texas with an associate's degree in theology with leadership emphasis. He's doing an excellent job and we're delighted to have him.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Glad to have
Thanks
you
for
here.
coming tonight.
Thank you for coming.
I want to make one note on Brandon. I've known this guy for a really long time. He started with dispatch a while back, but they lived just outside the area that they could live in, so he couldn't stay on. This man is going to be fabulous in that position, so I'm really glad that we changed that policy because it allows people like him to work for the city.
Very good.
Good to know.
Very good.
Thank you for letting us know. Yes. That's a hard job, dispatch.
Good evening, Commissioners. Jeff Chrisman, Director of Water Resources, and tonight I'm introducing Mark Teal. Mark is our newest water plant operator. He's been with us just almost 2 full weeks. Very excited to have Mark. Mark's experience has mostly been in manufacturing, material handling. Recently, he was working with Intersys, so we are very glad to have Mark with us. Mark's wife is here with us. I told her I wasn't going to embarrass her, but we're glad to have her with us tonight. That wasn't very embarrassing. Mark, they have 6 kids. They have multiple grandkids. Fishing is one of his hobbies. Health, fitness, also photography. So we're pretty excited about that. But Mark's been very eager to learn this past 2 weeks, so we're really excited to have him with us. So thanks for being here.
Welcome,
Thanks for
Mark.
being here.
Mark.
Thanks for coming along.
Yep. Thanks for having 6 kids. I do too. The 4th is the easiest.
The 4th is the easiest.
We learned a lot. Hello, Commissioners. Jeff Boyle, Director of Parks. I have 2 new employees here this evening. On my left is, here first is Josh Supas. Josh has a lengthy background in underground utilities and construction. He started with us on May 17th. Very happy to have Josh on board. He's done a great job with us so far. So, to his left is Jacob Kinderknecht. Jacob has actually been a seasonal with us for 5 years. So, he has a wealth of experience with the Parks Department, and he was hired on June 4th of this year as a full-time maintenance worker. Both very hard workers. Extremely pleased to have them on board.
Very good. Welcome, guys.
Welcome.
Glad to
Thanks
have
for
you both
coming
here.
tonight.
Thank you.
Good evening, Don Scheibler, Chief of Police for the Hayes Police Department. Tonight it's my pleasure to introduce to you Kyle Comstock. Kyle comes to us, he grew up in around Beverly, Kansas, went to school at Tescott High School. He graduated from Tescott High School. His senior year, he was named to the 8-man all-star football team. He came to Fort Hays State University on a track scholarship, participated in track all 4 years. His senior year, he was captain of the Fort Hays State track team. Just got his degree this last December in criminal justice and biology, which makes him the smartest guy over there. So he goes to the academy next week or next month, and we're very excited to have him on board. We're very fortunate to have him. So thank you.
Chief, are you
Welcome.
from Tescott area?
I am not from Tuscan. I'm from Bennington, same school district.
Oh, it must have slipped my mind. I
Yes,
thought,
sir.
yeah.
Good luck at the academy.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Glad to have you
Welcome.
here.
No, we were having issues earlier.
Hmm.
We're not sure.
Okay.
Our crack AV team will get on it though.
Is that it? All right, great.
Thank you. I appreciate everyone.
Thanks,
taking
everybody.
time
So
out of
glad.
your day to
Thanks
join
for
us.
coming.
Welcome.
We really appreciate it.
Next item is the consent agenda. So we have one appointment for approval and another recommendation.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Have a motion by Commissioner Schwaller, second by Commissioner Musil. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Next item is the Fire Rescue Training Facility Concrete Pad Award of Bid.
Evening, Commissioners. Brian Hagan's Interim Fire Chief, Hayes Fire Department. Here to talk to you this evening about the Hayes Regional Fire Rescue Training Facility Concrete Pad Award of Bid. This is a concept drawing of the facility, what it'll look like when completed. The concrete pad is going to be 125 foot by 100 foot and does include some other improvements to kind of enhance the road going into the facility. If you remember back in March, we did receive a grant from the Dane G. Hansen Foundation in the amount of $272,000 to go towards the construction of this facility. And this facility will be available for use by all fire departments within our region. 7 bids were received, with Morgan Brothers coming in at the low bid of $78,624. The options that we have is accept the bid from Morgan Brothers, direct us for another option, do nothing. But what we are asking for is for you to authorize the city manager to execute a contract with Morgan Brothers Construction in the amount of $78,624 for the construction of this concrete pad for the regional training facility.
Mr. Chairman, I move we authorize the city manager to execute a contract with Morgan Brothers Construction in the amount of $78,624 for the construction of the concrete pad for the Hayes Regional Fire Rescue Training Facility.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Schwaller, second by Commissioner Dinkle. Any discussion on that? Questions?
I appreciate staff's work on this. It's a great project, and securing the Hansen grant is quite an honor, and thank
You're
you.
welcome. Thank you for this opportunity.
Ryan, one thing, when the grant was written, you had a lot of support from outlying areas,
Yes.
letters of recommendation as well. Are you getting more contact for people that don't tend to use it, more than just fire departments?
With being part of the Kansas State Association of Chiefs in the District 2, which is kind of the north central region, in our meetings, there has been discussion of that other departments wanting to come down, and they're looking forward to it as well.
Very good, very good. Thanks so much. I second Commissioner Schwaller. It's a great project, and congratulations.
Well, thank you. So we appreciate this opportunity.
Call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you, Chief. Next item, East 27th Street Water Line Award of Bid.
Good evening, Commissioners. Jeff Crispin, Director of Water Resources. On March 17, 2017, the city received a formal request for water service from 5 property owners in the area of East 27th Street, east of Canterbury Drive, because of their private wells had declining water levels, and they are still experiencing those declining water levels. Staff had solicited bids for the extension of water service for domestic purposes only in the area of 27th and Canterbury. We worked with Driggs Design Group, who designed the line. They have done some other projects for the city before. M&D of Hayes submitted the loan bid for this project, and they were, like I said, they were the only bidder for this project. This is the area of the project. It is in the northwest corner of Hayes. This is the outline of it in red. On May 4th, 2017, Commission authorized staff to move forward with the design and present the residents with cost estimates and pre-annexation agreements that would have to come forward to Commission before we could move forward. This is a zoomed-in, closer view of the project. Outside city limits are actually in the yellow and black dotted line. This is the city limits right here. The areas in purple are the 5 residents. This is 1. There's 2 right here, and the purple area is right here. There's 1 over here, and this area right here is the 5th one. There are 2 areas of the decline service right here. Then also we have, currently we have 3 properties that are outside of city limits that are already serviced with water from the city, and those are in green. The water line that is in question that will be installed as part of this project is the light blue color that would run along 27th Street, cross here just before you get to the bridge that goes over 27th Street, and then go south along this road and connect with a line that's already at NCK Tech. This line is a dead-end line that goes north out of NCK Tech. So connecting this line as part of this project would provide us to do a loop. would increase the water quality in that area. And I would also like to mention too, the dark blue lines are current lines that are all already up in that area of town. I want to remind everybody the original agreements as part of this pre-annexation agreement. These are written within those documents that you had in your packets. It called for no demand for anything larger than a 2-inch water main. Water would be used for domestic purposes only. There is no interest in future development that would require larger upsizing. The property owners would agree to follow the city's conservation plans. Property owners would pay for 100% of the new infrastructure. Property owners would have no interest in future annexation. They would agree to assign the pre-annexation agreements, and they would agree to pay the outside city limit water rates. One of the important things about this agreement also for those residents is those 5, as part of this agreement, if anybody else would come on later and want to be part of this project, they would want water service, they would have to pay their portion, and that portion would have to be refunded back to the original 5. So let's say if a person came on next month and they wanted to come on to this project, they would have to pay somewhere close to that $12,000, and then that sum would be refunded back to those 5 property owners. As part of the bid, this was bid out as, bid was open on May 8th, 2018, and as I said, M&D of Hayes was the lone bidder. Bid was bid out as a 2-inch line with a 3-inch alternate, and as you see, we also put here not only their bid, but the engineer's estimate from Driggs Design. The residents out there chose the 3-inch option, which was $54,284 to include, plus the design, engineering, and easement costs. The 2-inch line was estimated by an engineer to be adequate for up to 10 connections. Of course, a 3-inch line would add to those connections and serve more residents if there would be more additional in the future. KDHE, we work with KDHE on any project for approval. KDHE does still have backlogs within their projects, but this became a little bit lengthier because we did not have HDPE type material, which this is the type of material that was written into the project, into our specifications. We worked with KDHE throughout this process, got that approved, and I'm happy to say that now that type of material is within our specifications, and we are updated to 2018 specifications with KDHE. Within the final cost, you'll see there, we broke it down to the design and engineering costs were $7,000. We had to purchase a small easement for $2,964, and that was part of the road that went north and south with the landowner right there, right along the north and south. The construction option for the 3-inch line was $54,284, which brought the total to $64,252. We removed $1,924 worth of a project. A part of this project, there are 2 connections on the first part of 27th Street where we decided as part of this project at the cost of the city to add 2 meter connections for future potential additions. We have two customers there that currently are on water service within the city. So we chose at this time to go ahead and make those connections. The balance to be paid by the 5 property owners is $62,328. And as of today, we do have the 5 pre-annexation agreements that are ready for the mayor to sign, and we do have the 5 checks that are ready to go. All the residents are eager to proceed with this project. So you have 3 options in front of you tonight. Award the bid to M&D and authorize the city manager to execute the pre-annexation agreements, direct staff to another option, or to do nothing. Our recommendation is to authorize the city manager to execute the pre-annexation agreements and to enter the contract with M&D of Hayes in the amount of $54,284 for the addition of the water service on East 27th Street to be funded by the 5 customers requesting service. And that is the action I request.
I'll move that we authorize the city manager to execute the pre-annexation agreements and enter a contract with M&D of Hayes in the amount of $54,284 for the addition of water services on East 27 to be funded by the 5 customers requesting service.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Musil, second by Commissioner Jacobs. Questions, comments?
I just have a quick question. When
Yes.
you, for us not in your field, where you say the water quality will be better for having that loop,
Yes.
why is that?
Because if you have what's called a dead-end line, basically the service that goes north into NCK Tech, there is a line that stops right there. And you always want water to be looped. That way the water is continuously flowing through that area. This way that will continually flow through and it'll provide quality for the residents, the 5 that will have connections right there, and it'll allow the quality at NCK Tech to improve. We have not had any issues with water quality there, but anytime you have a dead-end line, it is always important to continue that service and to make a connection.
And we do have to flush the dead end line once in a while
Yes.
to ensure it doesn't get stagnant, so that results in wasted
I have
water.
a property that's on a dead, it was, well, actually still is. The water is harder and there's sediment buildup. You really want that thing flushed.
Absolutely.
Thank you,
Can-
appreciate that.
Can you clarify with the 2 extra connections that you're making? You said they're already on city
Yes.
service, but you're adding connections?
Yes, at this time, those property owners, and I need to point those out real quick, those connections right there, they have long service lines. So this property right here has a long service line that goes to that connection on 27th Street, as well as this one. Those have that has almost a 700-foot, 1-inch service line.
Wow.
And they've been paying water outside city rates for a long time. So they are not necessarily part of this new project, but while we are going ahead and putting in service, we may as well put in a meter can. We are not necessarily putting in the meter itself right now, but the connection will be there in case that would move forward down the road.
I see.
But
So-
they're currently they've been paying outside city rates for many years.
Okay, so that would be if they would be annexed, or if something would happen with those lines.
Right.
It'd be a cheaper option in the future.
Right.
for them. Okay, that makes
Any,
more sense.
any indication why the other 2 property owners didn't want city water?
Just not interested.
Just not interested.
Just- And not everybody's having declining wells. I mean, there was a few of them that were, and some of them just felt like their wells weren't having a problem, so.
And if everybody else closes off their wells, then theirs might get better.
Yeah, absolutely. That is possible, but there is a mechanism in place that now if somebody would choose to come on later,
It's
that there
really
would
easy.
be,
It doesn't take all of this.
you know, and it wouldn't allow for somebody else to just make a connection for $1,500. There would
Right.
be a way for these other residents to ensure that there would be reimbursement.
Great.
Okay, call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Next item is the water tower project awarded bid.
Good evening again, Commissioners. Jeff Chrisman, Director of Water Resources. Staff solicited bids for the remediation and repainting of the 1 million gallon, what we call Sternberg Tower, and repainting of the 500,000 gallon North Tower. Bids were submitted by 5 contractors, with the lowest cost bid coming from McGuire Iron of South Dakota in the amount of $528,500. On March 1st, 2018, staff presented this project and requested to move it from the 2019 CIP budget to 2018. The commission supported this move, and as part of that project, we had a local artist that presented a potential project to paint a mural on the larger tower. The city of Hayes has 2 water towers in our city, and both of those towers are in need of exterior maintenance. Typically, when you hit 20 years on the exterior surface, those surfaces are in need of some sort of painting or remediation. We know for a fact that the 1 million gallon tank that is right by Sternberg does have lead that needs to be remediated. Once the lead is remediated, both that tower and the north tower, which is 500,000 gallons, will be repainted. The north tower does only require an overcoat. It is fading. The Sternberg Tower was built in 1972 and was recoated in 1997. It is, like I said, it is flaking paint and requires a full blast, so it's a little bit more involved project. The North Tower was built in 1994 and is fading and is becoming thin in spots, so it does require that overcoat, and it does not contain lead. Last week, the commission discussed colors and logos, so I thought I'd come back tonight and discuss that with you. The current project is to replace the same Hayes logo, as you see on the left side of the screen, and the similar blue color on this tower. That logo is on both sides of the tower. This process to replace the current logo is actually pretty simple for the contractor. The cost within that $528,500 as part of that logo is around $3,500. The new logo is pretty costly. The current process is when they repaint that tower, that current logo, you can kind of see through it. So the logo is still there. So the contractor doesn't actually have to start over. A new logo for one side is $12,500. 2 logos are $24,000. The top of the tower is 37 feet high, the dome portion of that tower. A proposed logo font would be the same, and I have it on the right side, would be the same, but it would be solid maroon, and the H in the Hayes logo would be around 12 feet high. Typically, with that being 37 feet, typically you do about a third of the size of that dome. So you'd be looking at 12 feet. If the commission would approve to proceed, it is recommended to paint the tower slate gray as pictured so the maroon would stand out and look good. One of the things to keep in mind, if that were to proceed, is what we would want it to look like from the north and the south. So that would be a discussion that the commission would want to discuss. The 1 million gallon tower is currently an off-white color that has more of a yellowish tint. It has faded over time. Ideally, and it's really not part of this project tonight, but if a mural were to be painted in the future, tank white would be something that would be recommended because it would be a best choice and it would look really good. And that is the rendering. It's kind of neat how you're able to go into a program and actually make it look realistic. Contact was also made with Fort Hays State regarding the logo at the top of the tower. Fort Hays State has agreed to replace the logo after the tower is repainted at their cost. A contract was drafted by the city attorney and is ready for the mayor to sign. The original contract was from 1997 when that tower was repainted. There is no design at this time, and it would not affect this project, and we would be working with Fort Hays State as part of their redesign of a new logo at the top of the tower. Bids were open on April 17, 2018, as I said, with McGuire Iron of Sioux Falls, South Dakota being the lowest bidder. McGuire Iron has a representative of Heston, Kansas, and they have worked with us before on projects with our towers. Favorable references were obtained for McGuire Iron. As I stated last week, project of this size and complexity does require inspection services to be performed by a licensed contractor, or a licensed engineer, excuse me. The Department of Water Resources has worked on many projects over the last 2 years with Bartlett and West out of Topeka. Bartlett and West can perform inspection services on the entire project at a price not to exceed $28,500. And I did a little bit of a change on this slide from last week to kind of reflect what the prices would be if you chose to change things this evening. The contract documents call for the work to begin on or about July 15th, and they must be completed by December 15th. I talked to the contractor today, and they would proceed next week if we allowed them to, if it proceeded tonight. The warranty, as I stated last week, would be 2 years from the completion date of this project. At the 1 month before the end of 2 years, we would contact McGuire Iron. McGuire Iron would come out and do a full inspection of both towers, and if there's any defects notated, they would do any repairs necessary at their cost. So I think that is a pretty good part of the contract. Financial consideration, this project was listed, as I stated, within the CIP on the 2019 budget in the amount of $700,000 to be funded out of Water Capital Reserve. The total cost as presented is $528,500 for maintenance, which includes remediation and repainting, and $28,500 for inspection services, and is well below that budgeted amount. You have these options before you tonight. Accept the low bid from McGuire Iron and Bartlett and West, direct the staff to another option, or do nothing. And our staff recommends awarding the bid to McGuire Iron in the amount of $528,500 and Bartlett and West in the amount of $28,500 for inspection services.
Point of information.
Yes.
Is the amount you've listed without the logo that we asked for?
Without the
Yes,
change.
it's with
Yes.
the replacement of the current logo.
The replacement of the current logo.
I move we authorize the city manager to execute a contract with McGuire Iron in the amount of $528,500 for the remediation of lead and repainting of both the Sternberg and North Tower be funded from the Water Capital Reserve Fund.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Swaller, second by Commissioner Musil. I think we're all thinking the same here.
Yeah.
I know those logos are not worth that, right?
Nope.
Okay.
And it's red. The maroon will fade faster.
Yeah.
If it came with the trees in the background, I'd be supportive.
No, I like the trees. That's a great program.
Perfect. Call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0.
We have two other
I know,
yeah,
I'm-
actions.
I move to authorize the city manager to execute a contract with Bartlett and West in the amount of $28,500 for inspection services to be funded out of the Water Capital Reserve Fund.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Dinkle, second by Commissioner Schwaller. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0.
I move to, Mr. Chair, move to authorize the mayor to enter into the agreement with Fort Hays State University Sternberg Museum to lease display space at the top of the 1MG water tower.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Jacobs, second by Commissioner Schwaller. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Crispin.
Thank you.
Thanks for checking into that.
Yeah, thank you.
Next item is a charter ordinance to modify the transient guest tax rate.
Toby Doherty, City Manager. I am here tonight to present the City Commission with an option to adopt a charter ordinance that would modify the transient guest tax rate to 7%. City Commission has a charter ordinance in place right now that caps the transient guest tax rate at 5%. The City Commission, as part of that ordinance, has the ability by resolution to raise or lower the transient guest tax amount within that cap. 2 weeks ago, the City Commission authorized engineering design services for a roundabout corridor on the North Vine area. And that roundabout corridor has an initial price tag of about $7.6 million. City staff made the suggestion that part of the project could be funded, a significant part of the project could be funded with transient guest tax dollars due to the fact that the improvements would make it better for visitors, pedestrians, people that are staying in the area, people that are utilizing the area, not just people that live here. So with a $7.6 million price tag, looking at what the transient guest tax would bring in, at a 1%, you're looking at $208,000 annually. 2% additional, you're looking at $416,000 annually. Below that is the bonding capacity of those two amounts. So if the City Commission were looking at a 2% transient guest tax funding the full amount with the monies already allocated or in reserves, you're looking at a 20-year bond, $6.2 million that would pay for the project. As mentioned last week, city staff is in the process of seeking grant opportunities. We may or may not be awarded for small or a large portion of the project with grant funds. If the City Commission were to move forward, the way the timeline would work, a charter ordinance has a 60-day protest period. A certain percentage of people who voted in the last election can file a petition with the county clerk. If the petition's valid, the question's actually put up to a vote. And after the 60-day protest period, notification we made the state of Kansas, and the tax would go into effect in October. Once the tax goes into effect, monies start coming in. It would be put into capital reserves is where we would transfer it to, and in hopes of helping to pay for the project. If the City Commission in the future decides that the project is going to be smaller than what the entire concept is, or if there are grant monies comes in, because the charter ordinance allows the City Commission to lower the transient guest tax or raise it by resolution, we could do the calculations on bonding capacity, and then it could be lowered at the time. So at this point, we showed this last week. This is a map showing the transient guest tax across the state. We are in blue. Blue is 5%. As you move up, the green is 6%, the reds are 7%, and the oranges get up to 8%. You don't see any 9 outside of Johnson County. So we are on the low end compared to peer cities. We're on the high end compared to western Kansas and I-70 west of Salina, but across the state we're low when compared to the average. City attorney pointed out that there was a typo in the charter ordinance. It's on page 100 of your packet, and it's in section 1. It refers back to the original charter ordinance that was adopted in 2006, not 2016. So if anybody does make a motion, it will be the understanding that typo will be corrected in the ordinance presented to you. So the action requested tonight is to approve charter ordinance number 28.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve charter ordinance number 28, increasing the transient guest tax to 7%.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Swaller, second by Commissioner Jacobs. Either Toby or Todd maybe do a little explanation of the difference between a charter ordinance and just a regular ordinance and why this is requiring that.
Because Kansas is a home rule state, cities have to follow what the state statutes mandate as far as what we can and can't do. However, if the legislature at the state level adopts laws that aren't uniformly applied to all cities, then cities have the ability to use their home rule, exercise their home rule powers and charter out. So the initial set of transient guest tax laws that were put in place by the state legislature weren't uniformly applied. My guess, I don't know why, but it's not uncommon for them to say, we're gonna put this set of rules in place except for Johnson County. They can do something different. Well, that creates a non-uniformity, so therefore then home rule cities have the ability to exercise out. So that's what it was. The first charter out of this was back in 2006 when the city commission decided that we're gonna give ourselves the ability to modify it up and down via resolution.
And for us, that means that this would take 4 affirmative votes instead of the typical 3 for this to pass, correct?
Yes, that's correct. Takes a supermajority.
But for this to be modified down below 7%, it would simply be a majority.
Correct. It'd be a resolution, which would be a majority of the quorum.
Thanks. Anybody else?
I do have a point I would like to make, albeit rather small. I do support this, even though I am not a roundabout fan. We do need to resolve the intersection at 32nd and 33rd. It is the most dangerous intersection in the city, and we've neglected it for a long time. We know that one option that was actually really simple, but we cannot pursue today, was about $1.8 million. So regardless of how we pursue, we don't even know what the engineering is going to look like. We will need at least $2 million to fix just that one intersection. And it's important that we do it, and that's why I support this tax.
Well, and one thing that I got to think about today when I was reading this again is, 10 to 15 years, potentially, the excess sales tax for the ball fields is going to run out, correct? And this would be possibly an avenue to help. I mean, it'll need updated and potentially, if it continues to grow like it has been, would this be something that we could use?
It's
down the road?
definitely a funding source.
Instead of taking out a general fund and raising sales tax or property taxes at the time?
Absolutely correct. It's a funding source we could use. And as evidenced by last year's budget, and the budget will be presented to you in a couple of weeks, we're utilizing some of the transient guest tax dollars to help fund the parks, special parks program, which puts amenities in parks, which a lot of visitors
Right.
use.
Well, I guess my thing, and not to go off on sports, because I know that always gets negative around here, but as the tournaments increase here, I mean, hopefully we continue that over time. I doubt any of us to be commissioners up here, that they'll have the money by, using this to keep it updated and, one of the best in Kansas.
I really appreciate staff's recommendation on this. I think it's an outstanding way to finance something that doesn't cause us to raise taxes in other ways. So I thank you very much for bringing this forward.
I've appreciated the creativity on this entire project. Looking at we've known that the North Vine corridor has needed help for a long time. The 32nd, 33rd intersection's been rough, and this has come up multiple times and we've not been able to resolve it. The idea of putting roundabouts throughout this corridor to help with access to businesses, this is a creative way of funding it that doesn't require us to raise taxes on the city, doesn't put other projects in jeopardy. I really appreciate the creative approach to this entire project from start to finish.
And for the record, I happen to agree with Commissioner Schwaller. We should have done what we could have done at the time, and that came out of the 20-year comprehensive plan when we worked on it. So I'm sorry we didn't do that, but we didn't, and now we're moving forward, and we'll get things taken care of.
So Toby, I have a question. If we would get the Tiger grant, would we go with the 15-year bond, or what, I guess maybe?
Kind of depends on the amount of the grant
Yeah.
and how the TGT is doing at the time.
Yeah, and if the grant is large enough, and some of those bill grants, the formerly Tiger grants, the bill grants now can be quite large. If the grant is large enough, then I'm sure our finance director could look at the possibility of self-financing, and we get the interest off of it, which would be
That'd be terrific if
beneficial
that
for
would
us as
happen.
well.
Absolutely.
And either Kim or Toby, why don't you just give us a quick rundown of what the transient guest tax has been doing for the last 5 years? Because I think everybody's aware sales tax has stagnated, but transient guest tax is not, correct?
No, it's been growing steadily, in some places significantly outpacing the sales tax, which has been very flat for the last 3 years. We were flat last year in transient guest tax, but that was also the first full year after the Ambassador closed, and despite its condition, it still drew a lot of people in. And then we also had the Butterfield that was down for a significant period of time for water damage. But we have Town Place Suites that's opened. We have another hotel that's in the planning. We're getting ready to be constructed, and one more in the planning. So we think it's going to keep going up.
Great. Call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Commissioner Dinkle?
This is my last meeting, and I had debated writing a long speech with a mandate and all of these, but I decided not to.
Good call.
I'd spare you all of that. I also thought about coming up with personalized comments for every one of you, but I decided I don't like you all that
Really
much.
glad you didn't do that.
Thank you.
No, actually, being on this commission has really been a tremendous experience, and I feel much more confident in the future of Hayes having served on the board. Not because of anything I've done, but because of getting to know all four of you. I think as an outside observer, it's easy to judge on Hayes Post comments or just from an article here and there. And my observations, my opinions of everyone on this commission have changed in the time, and I'm very confident in the future of Hayes being in your hands. So I thank you for the opportunity. I thank the city of Hayes for the opportunity to serve in this capacity. It's been an honor. And I thank all of you for being, looking out for the future of Hayes.
I think that means he didn't like us and he likes us now.
Maybe.
I'm
a
hoping
community
that's the
consensus,
direction it
yes.
went,
It's the
yes.
community consensus.
I expressed my gratitude to Commissioner Dinkle last week, and I'll say it again. It's really been my pleasure to get to know you, and also your lovely wife who's with you tonight. We're going to miss you in our community, but we wish you the very best of luck.
Thanks.
I also, last week, I got to know you guys, I think, through the farmer's market, and I really enjoyed seeing your family grow, and, and just serving with you for a little bit of time. I wish you the best, and I look forward to seeing you when you come back. Best of
Thanks.
luck.
Thanks.
I expect nothing but excellence and do us proud.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure having you on here. I've been glad to be able to get to know you a little bit better. Definitely wish you guys the best. You're moving to a place that I don't even really have any desire to visit. So
I do.
wish
I'll
you
come visit.
luck.
I'll
I
come
don't.
visit.
Wish you luck, but I'm happy in Hayes. So I think that we need an executive session. Is that correct?
Correct. I would request the commission enter into executive session for purposes of discussing attorney-client privilege, matters related to attorney-client privilege, and possible property acquisition, to include the city manager, city commission, city attorney, assistant city manager, for a period not to exceed 20 minutes.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Jacobs, second by Commissioner Buesel. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0.